Mysterious thing, right, Guillermo?
Right, Jimmy.
Thank you. Love is, it's difficult to put into words. So with the most romantic day of the year approaching on Sunday, we thought it would be fun to go out on the street to ask children to explain love. And, well, this is what they had to say.
What is love?
What is love?
I have no idea.
What is love?
Love is when you love somebody. And it's when you love somebody, and it's really when you love somebody.
What do you think it feels like to be in love?
It feels like heaven.
What do people who are in love with each other do?
They be gross.
What does that mean?
They kiss, they be gross.
If you're not in love and you want to be, what should you do to find someone?
Go to a woman casino.
What about Tinder? Do you think that's a good way to meet people?
Tinder, maybe. If it's chicken, probably. They would probably like it.
Chicken Tinder?
Yeah, I live there a lot.
Yeah, it's fun to have on a date.
Yep.
Do any of your friends at school have boyfriends?
I don't know that answer. My friend pretended she did, but it was just a stuffed animal.
That's weird, right?
It was funny. Because after school, who knows what happens with him.
And I like to do it all the time.
You like to do what all the time?
Play with my Legos.
Do you like girls?
Yeah.
Do you have a girlfriend?
Yes.
Who is she?
Isabella.
And what do you like about her?
Her hair. She has beautiful toys.
Is there anyone you have a crush on?
It's a secret. I'm not telling anybody.
So is she your girlfriend?
No. But she's beautiful.
What do you like about her besides that she's beautiful?
She's just beautiful.
Is there any boy you have a crush on at school?
No.
How did you know you were in love with her?
When I meted her in kindergarten, she was just so beautiful, and she had long hair. She was just so beautiful. I'm not really into that stuff anymore.
Like what stuff?
Like marrying stuff anymore. I feel like I want to be single now.
And what about like for the rest of your life or just now?
Just at the moment. I'm not sure about maybe when I get older.
You just want to focus on yourself and your career.
Yeah.
What is love?
I can do kicks.
I'll see the kid. Wow. And that's what love is?
Yeah.
All right. So you learned something. Thank you, kids.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this message with West Church. My name is Andrea Smith, and I am grateful for the opportunity to share this message with you today. We are finishing up the message series, Would You Date You? And so over this series, we've been talking about dating and what it means to, be our true, authentic selves. So if you didn't watch last week's message, I invite you to go back and do that. I was my false self, and so it was a very different perspective of me and what, my less than good self is about. And then we tied it into faith and scripture and what it means to really be our authentic true selves. So today we're going to wrap it all up together. And so if you're worshiping with us, if you're checking out this message and you're newer to our community, we would love to know that. So would you please text the number that you see on your screen, or I will read it to you in just a minute. But text the number that you see on your screen and let us know that you're worshiping with us for the first time. This is the West Church phone number. It is 704-240-0966. 704-240-0966. Let us know that you're here, and we have a gift we'd like to share with you, and then you can choose whether or not you opt in to our future communications. But today we have an exciting day. So when we first decided to do this series, the first Sunday in the series, we had you text in dating game questions. Like if you could be on the dating game and you get to ask questions and you have potential suitors on the other side of the curtain, and you're going to pick them based on the questions you ask, please submit your questions. And so today, Lexi and I, after the first worship song, we're going to do something fun. We are going to ask each other, we're going to draw your questions out of a bucket, and we're going to ask each other the dating game questions, and we're going to give you our answers as our true selves and as from our false self perspective. And then we want you to do the same thing. So the whole point of you joining in and checking out West Church and listening to me is so that hopefully, together, we can be transformed. Transformation is salvation. That's what the word, if you translate it in the original Greek and Hebrew text, that's what salvation means, is transformation. And we're all about the journey. And we hope that in our journey, we're always growing closer to the divine, to God, and learning to be like Jesus and the way that Jesus revealed God to us. And so it's all about change and all about being more holy, authentic in the light and in the eyes of the divine and in God. And so today, as we ask the dating game questions, I want you to ask them of yourself. And I want you to think about, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, or depending on how old you are, 5 years ago, would I have answered this a different way? And do I see transformation in the way that I relate to myself and in the way that I relate to other people. That's part of our journey, is learning to look at ourselves and see the ways that we are more like love and more whole, and then the things that are our shadow sides, the part of ourselves that are not exactly ideal. They're not our authentic selves. So that's why I look like I just rolled out of bed this morning. Last week, I got all dressed up like I was, trying to impress people. I'm not trying to impress anybody today. And honestly, if I'm my true, authentic self, I would not have even put makeup on, but I didn't want to scare you that badly. And this gets put out there forever, for perpetuity. And we did our year-end stats last week, and we found out that the messages get like over 70,000 views over the course of a year after they land on the internet. So I am vain enough that I couldn't do this without makeup. So sorry about that. But like our authentic selves, who are you really? Like what brings you the most peace? And for me, yoga pants and a t-shirt and not having to worry about, looking put together, that is my authentic self. And so who are you? What's your authentic self? And the ultimate question is, would you date you? Your real you. Would you date you? Ultimately, if we begin to pattern ourselves after the person Jesus of Nazareth, I think the answer would be yes. But it takes some change and some transformation on our ends, and that's what we're talking about today. One little housekeeping thing that I'd love to ask you, or actually two. We did our year-end statistics this year, and so that's when we turn in our numbers to the United Methodist Conference, the whole global denomination, and we're always very intentional about being authentically honest with those numbers. We don't ever want to pad them and make ourselves look bigger or anything like that. One great thing is we did show growth as far as people engaging in our communities. And there's lots of reasons for that. AMPed, our children's ministry, has grown. Growth Co. is in its official state now, and it's reaching people. And our Uganda campus is reaching people. But right now, what you're doing, it also is reaching new people, and we're grateful for that. One of the things that troubles me in today's age, it makes me sound really old, but it's true, is that I don't know who you are. Like when church was all in a building and everybody came and we could see each other, like I knew who was a part of West. And so many of you, like I may never meet you, but your names matter. Like I like to know, not just for my ego, but because I pray for you, I think of you. And at some point in your journey, you may need pastoral care. You may need Lexi or I to like walk alongside you, or Lane and Dawn, and help you through a difficult time in your life. So it's really important that you let us know that you're here. Whether you worship during the week or if you're worshiping live right now, type your name in the chat room and just let us know that you're joining in. Those names matter. Every week, Lexi takes all your names and puts them in a spreadsheet. And so we can look and see who's a part of the West community. And so it may seem like a pain in the butt, but I really want you to put your name in the chat room because you matter. Your participation in the West community, it matters. And we are in this journey of transformation together, and you're never alone. And so please put your name in the chat room. We want to know that you're here. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that we would like to know, Ash Wednesday is this Wednesday. And it is the time that we begin the 6 weeks journey leading into Easter. It's a very spiritual time. It's a very introspective, reflectional time. And we are going to be doing a message series called Twists and Turns. And we're going to look at the journey of Jesus. Now, we are going to make this relevant for you, and we are going to tie in some of the things that Jesus lived using examples from the show Wednesday on Netflix. There are so many spiritual principles that are shown in that movie, and so we're going to be teaching the life of Jesus, but we're going to be looking at some things from Wednesday. And so I hope it's going to be fun, but also informative. With that being said, Ash Wednesday, last year we offered drop-in ashes. Like you could come by our production studio here where we host worship, and we would impose ashes on your head and have just a few moments of meditation and prayer. It was okay attended. I mean, I wouldn't say it was great. So it was not enough that we thought it was relevant to be offered this year. But then over the last several days, I've been getting messages, are we going to have an Ash Wednesday service? And so I've been toying with that idea. I'm always willing to offer spiritual content if you are interested in it. But, you know, if you're not, then okay. So would you want to attend an Ash Wednesday service? If we had one, we would have one here in our worship production studio. So would you please put that in the chat room, or you can text that number that you see on your screen again and just let us know, yes, I would attend an Ash Wednesday service, and tell us what time you would attend. Like, we need the data from you to know what to offer. And we're not going to be offended if you don't want to attend one. We'll begin our daily meditations for the season of Lent on Wednesday, and those will go out via email or on our Facebook page. So you can get spiritual content that way. But we want to know, like, if you want to attend an Ash Wednesday service, let us know yes and tell us the time. I'm really glad you're here, and I hope you find today fun and meaningful, and also a catalyst for transformation in your own journey. Thanks for being here.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old bay knew Jesus when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin is heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, and you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, I'll stay.
So thanks for being here, and thank you for sending in questions for the dating game. Lexi Hernandez is here. She is our growth co-pastor, and I'm so privileged to be on staff with her as a, no, like I really mean that. Like, it's so fun to have another pastor to be able to do ministry with, and she reaches 20 and 30-year-olds, and that's the largest demographic that's dropping out of church. So Lexi had to go before the Board of Ordained Ministry on Monday, and she sent me her papers. So like epic boss fail, she sent me her papers to read, and it was the, like, I didn't know I had COVID yet, but it was like the Monday that I started feeling really, really bad. And so I saved them in my inbox. And like over the last 2 weeks, like trying to get through the whole COVID thing, like it really kicked me on my butt. And so I didn't read them. And then I think we were texting Monday, and Lexi's like, well, I have my Board of Ordained Ministry interview at 2. And I'm like, or whatever time. I'm like, oh, crap. I'm like, I never read your papers. I'm so sorry. And the last thing I wanted to do was read them and stress you out then and be like, well, you know, you really need to say blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to. So we prayed together before her interview, and I prayed during her interview. It's a big deal. Like, for her to be able to be a reverend, she has to receive the blessing of the board. And it really keeps, you know, us aligned theologically. And so it really is an important process, but it's also a very human process. So I know that. And so I was worried just that they would affirm Lexi, because it's a little different what we do. And so on her way home, she called me to let me know how it went. And she said, you know, I tried, you know, I didn't know really what to wear. And when I walked, and that's a big thing. Like, you're laughing, but I can't tell you, like, I went out for my Board of Ordained Ministry interview. I had three of them. The first one, I went out and bought like a little blazer. I don't wear blazers like ever, okay? If you ever see me in a blazer, take me to the doctor. And if you ever see me in a pantsuit, I'm too short. I look like Humpty Dumpty in those things. And so I just don't wear them. And so Lexi's like, well, you know, I tried to look, you know, professional, and of course, I wanted to look cute, and which she always does. But she's like, I walked in, and like everybody looked so professional, and I thought, okay. And tell everybody what you wore.
So similar to the outfit that I'm wearing today, I had on some black holey jeans nonetheless. They had rips all in them. I had some cowboy booties and a Rolling Stones t-shirt on. And
she was like, I didn't think through, you know, that exactly. And I'm like, but you were authentically yourself. And that's what this whole message series has been about, is being authentically who we are. And I'll tell you a little more about how West is authentically who we are as a community, and how we made some decisions early on to be, when we say real, relevant, and non-threatening, like what that really meant, and how the launch team took it to heart. And so their first Sunday, I was like, really? And they explained to me why they did what they did. So it was really cool. So in order to tie you in and make you feel a part of this, we asked you to submit dating game questions. So all of these questions are from you. Lexi has never seen them. I've seen them only for about like 5 minutes this morning as I jotted them down on note cards. And honestly, I can't remember what is on them. So
I keep trying to peek in the bucket.
She keeps trying to look, but it's not working. So the way that we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, there's 8 questions, right? And we're going to do them. I'm going to ask her one, then she's going to ask me. And then I do have like some Bible stuff for us today. Like, we're going to talk about Jesus, so don't wig out that we're just playing the dating game. But the first goal is for Lexi to answer it from her false self. And then the second answer she gives will be to her from her true self. And one of the things that I appreciate about Lexi, how old are you?
26.
26. And I'm 52. Wow, I'm double your age, right? Like that, yeah. Yeah, that's right? Okay, good. The worship production people are helping me do some quick math. So I'm twice your age. That's interesting. when Lexi and I did her goal setting for the year, she said, I need to let you know that I've been going through a transformation. And tell us just a little bit about that. Do you mind?
Yeah. So I have grown up in, I guess, classify it as a very people-pleasing personality. On the Enneagram in high school and early college, I was like a 2 and a 9. And there's nothing wrong with 2s and 9s, but
Tell
they
us what
are.
that means.
A 2 is the helper, and that's someone who always wants to be there to help and support and encourage. The number 9 is peacemaker, so they're conflict avoidant. They do not want any problems with anyone. They're very harmonious. And we just took the Enneagram as a staff, and I was a 7, and that's the enthusiast, I think is what it's called, and it had harsher qualities to it
Yes,
than I
it
was
did.
expecting.
Because I am that too.
Yes.
I was like, oh, wow. Oh,
yes.
wow.
You would think the enthusiast is like all positive.
Yeah, I was
but
like,
no.
yes, that's where I landed.
Yeah.
And then,
So
yeah.
I feel like I'm leaning into who God actually made me to be instead of who I was trying to present myself as, people pleasing and everybody loving me no matter what. Like, I would actively just not be who I was. I would say things I didn't mean just because I didn't want people mad at me. So I do feel like right now I'm going through a very positive transformation of stepping into who I actually am.
And that's the goal. Like, honestly, religion, that's the goal of religion, of any religion, any world religion. That is the tenet of it, is for us to go through that transformation, because we come out of the womb as authentically whole with the divine, because we're created from the divine and love and our souls, and so we come out in this human world and we learn human conditioning, and then we grow up living into that human conditioning, and that's honestly what our false self is. It's the self, the part of ourselves that we allow to be defined and driven and encouraged from societal things. And so we learn to do things that are going to get us positive rewards. And then hopefully at some point in our journey, we realize, wait a minute, like this is not really true to who I am. And I think that's what Lexi's living into right now. So it's a privilege to be able to share that journey with her and be able to say, let that go. Don't worry about that. And somebody told me once, when you hit 50, you'll start saying things that you really mean instead of just, tiptoeing around everything. And I thought, oh, that's just BS. And I don't think it's because I hit 50, but I do think it is because I am learning that in order to be whole and feel at peace, that there's this authenticity that has to be there. And that at some point, living into other people's opinions or expectations, it just doesn't work anymore. And that inner turmoil that you can't figure out why it's there, that's ultimately what it is, because you're battling your false self so much and not just being authentically who we are. So that's what this is all about. That's what this message series has been all about. So the first question, Lexi, is, on what non-essential thing would you spend the most money? So think about your old self, like the people pleaser self. On what non-essential thing would you spend the most money?
So false self would say, oh, well, something someone else wants, a gift for someone. And I mean, I still want to give gifts, but I would immediately neglect myself and anything I want. And I would say, oh, Tony, Andrea, Mom, what would you like? I've got some money. What would you like?
Yep, that is so true. And we're going to talk more about an Enneagram as a church. I haven't quite figured out how, but it is such a powerful tool. And that's a part of the number that we are. Our personality type is you do things for other people, and you really have to question your motives because they can be self-serving. And I read that, I'm like, oh, like I've always thought I just loved people, but apparently there's some underlying crap in there. So yeah. So now, if you were to answer that now, like in the awareness of the people-pleasing stuff, on what non-essential thing would you spend the most money?
Without a doubt, tattoos.
Very good. All right, there you go. Okay.
Okay. Andrea. Oh. If an ex contacted you, what would you do?
You know, when I read that this morning, I'm like, I really hope I don't get that one because it determines if I'm going to answer truthfully to you as your pastor or just candy coat it a little bit. So, living into my authentic self, my God self, has been a journey for me. And apparently, after years of therapy, because I did watch my mom die when I was 9 in the middle of a church worship service, and then my dad married again in like 6-8 months, and you know they were not really interested in having a 9-year-old. Luckily, I had a stepsister who basically raised me. I really have abandonment issues, and so my false self never would let a relationship end unless I had somebody waiting in the wings. And I'm embarrassed to say that. And because at some point, right, like that comes down to an issue of integrity. And because you're like leading somebody along while you've got somebody else here. And at one point, I sort of probably cheated on a boyfriend. Just by kissing somebody else, but I still, you know, feel guilty about that now. And when I was in college, and then when I was teaching school, who became my husband, and I were in a long distance relationship. A former ex reached out to me. We were both living in the same town again, and he was my first love, and he wanted to hang out. And the conversation went to, why did we not, you know, make it? Like in college, why didn't we get back together? And would you ever consider getting back together? And since like now I'm looking at a failed marriage and for reasons beyond my control, you know, just the other day I was thinking about this. I'm like, well, what would have my life have been if I had lived into what I really wanted to do? But the new guy, they both were named Scott, ironically. The new Scott, who was like my high school love, he was a risk. And I didn't know if it would work out. And I had a lot invested in the other Scott and loved him. And so I was unwilling to take a chance. But for a while, I did have conversations with Scott and the other Scott and just be friends, you know. But then when he's like, well, would you want to date? I'm like, okay, this has gone too far. And so when it got to that point, I stopped the relationship. And I mean, this was 30 years ago. But ever since then, I felt guilty because that was toying with infidelity. And not sexual infidelity, but there's such a thing as emotional infidelity. And so that is the true self answer lapsed into how I acted when I was my false self. So not anything I'm proud of. Hope you won't leave West Church because of that. And, you know, so like now in my true love and with Tom, like I'm very clear about boundaries. And if I ever think anything's inappropriate, I'm just like, no. So not that I have people beating down my door, but, you know, I make sure they're very clear boundaries. So, Lexi, I don't know why you're getting all the easy questions, but what is the ideal date? False self, ideal date.
I think this plays into the first answer and first question. I would automatically say, I don't care. I'm down for whatever. You tell me what you would want to do. That was my go-to.
So always putting yourself last. Yeah. Wow.
Well, what do you want to do? Because I think not only did I want to please them, I also didn't want my feelings hurt if I suggested something and they were like not totally into it. Like Topgolf, for example. I love to go to Topgolf. And if I were to say, what do you think about Topgolf? And they're like, then I would be crushed.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I would somehow twist that into something personal where like they think my interests are weird or something. So
Do you ever do that? Do you ever twist things and to make it personal when it's not personal? Yeah, so that's part of that false self kind of stuff that we've all got going on. Yeah. So what would your newfound self, what would your ideal date be?
I like to try a lot of new things. So I think anything that I haven't done already. I enjoy doing things that I know I like, but I like to have new experiences. And Andrea knows this firsthand. Both of us, but I'll say me for this instance, always coming up with new things to do and then don't stick to them. So I have like a new hobby every single day. It feels like I'm like, oh my gosh, I could be a millionaire if I just stuck to this hobby. And then the next day I'm like, well, this one looks fun. So I think just anything that would be a new experience for me.
Cool. All right. Very good. Very good.
Okay. Oh. You are getting the hard one.
Great.
How many people will ultimately be in our relationship?
Oh, good. That's good.
Poor Andrea.
So my false self was a people pleaser too. And that led into being like, you know, everybody's friend and the life of the party. And this was a hard lesson for me to learn, actually. I also craved family because I really didn't have like a large one. I'm an only child. And so at first in my false self, there'd be a lot of people in my relationship, like all my best friends. They'd know all the details, and I would totally assimilate myself into the families of the people that I was with no boundaries, like whatever they wanted, whatever holiday it was. And the partner would say, and this was true in my long-term college relationship and then my relationship that ultimately became my marriage, I was like a part of their family, but it was never on anything that I wanted. Like, they didn't care about what I wanted. It was just they were going to such and such for Thanksgiving. This is what we're doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all there. Because I never wanted to rock that boat. I never wanted to be the one that was the dissenter. And so then, like, part of my journey was once I had children and became a mom, I did not have a lot of strong traditions as a family after my mom died. And because all those things got to be rewritten. And I was determined that as a mom, I was going to set some traditions with my children. And that meant not doing what everybody else wanted. And that's what happened. I mean, I'll never forget one of those pinnacle moments on Christmas morning. And we were supposed to go visit family late that evening, but they had called that morning and wanted us to come then, and I just refused. And that was not a pleasant conversation. I'm sure I could have handled it differently, but I wanted it to be an us thing, not a them and an us. And at that point, there were very much in-laws. It was like me, my spouse, and the in-laws, and not mine. And I'm like, at what point does this become just us? You know, like, I know that whole thing, like, you know, the Bible says a man shall leave his mother, but the bride's supposed to leave her family too. Like, the two are supposed to become one. It's not supposed to be a couple and then some other people. And so ultimately now, Tom and I have very clear boundaries for our children and for, you know, one another. Like, we're a team. And learning and forming those bonds together now at this stage in life with someone that I can trust explicitly, it's just been amazing to see what a healthy relationship is like when you don't have a third party involved. So that's my true self answer, is that it needs to be you and I, not me, you, and your mom, or me, you, and your sister, or me, you, and your best friend. It needs to be the two of us. And so that would be my answer. But days ago, back in my 20s, you know, I was the life of the family because I was a pushover and I did anything and everything they wanted to do. And at some point, that got really old. Yeah. So I hope you get a really hard one. Okay, this is good for you. So, and this came from one of y'all. So, well, they all did, but this one, when one of you texted this in to me, I'm like, holy cow, what a great question. Because if you answer from your false self, you answer trying to appease the other person. So if you're trying to get somebody to date you, you're going to answer this very differently than if you answer it as your true self. What are the 3 most traumatic things that have happened to you? So false self first. What would you say to a curtain full of hot guys on the other side of the curtain? What would you say to them if somebody asked you to describe the 3 most traumatic things that have ever happened to you? What would you say wanting them to choose you?
I'm trying to think of the specific 3 things, but I know that they would be things that aren't my most traumatic.
Yeah.
It would be,
And you don't even have to come up with them.
It would
but
be
that's
something that
false.
false, that I say is really bad, but it's not anywhere close to what I would actually want to say.
So I'm not going to make you at all, because this is a very vulnerable time and space. But are you willing to share like one traumatic thing?
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to my family dynamic growing up, I would share with them, oh, my mom and dad were not together. And I would leave it at that. Like, oh, I didn't grow up with my dad in the home. That was really traumatic for me. But the real answer would be my mom and dad were 15 years old when they had me. I didn't grow up with him in the home. He lived in Michigan. My mom had moved to North Carolina, and his family didn't want anything to do with me, having me in the picture. So I think when you give those details, that's the real trauma for me, but I could leave it at, oh, well, my mom and dad just weren't together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when the West folks asked this question, and it was one of our online community participants, our online campus members, I remember thinking, yeah, you could say, I was walking to our date and my heel broke, and, so you can get those surface. You can tell a lot about people when they answer this question, what's the most traumatic thing that happened to you? Is it a superficial answer? How deep can they go? Have you ever watched Love is Blind?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm fascinated with that program. It is like the biggest sociological experiment with some psychology wrapped in. I really am an advocate for the show Love is Blind on Netflix. Watch season 3, because people choose their partner based on conversations, and they never get to see them at all. And you see the questions that they ask each other. And one of the guys on the show, who the last season 3, did you watch that?
I think I actually watched it with Lane.
Okay, very good. Cole, he was like this really cute guy, and he was talking to this really cute girl, and she just wouldn't go deep. And he's like, look, is this as deep as we're ever going to go? Because, I need more. He was a man of faith, and, he's like, I've got to have more than this. And she just couldn't or wouldn't. And so it was interesting. So trauma and depth in relationships. And honestly, when we're our true selves and our false selves, false selves, we keep it all nice and good. And our true selves, we let people in like Jesus did. And so, yeah. So good. I'm glad you got a hard one. How many do we have? 2 more
I think we
each?
One. You have 2 more, and I have 1 more.
Okay, that sounds right.
All right. If I asked your friends to describe you in 5 words, what would they say?
My false self, they would have said, the life of the party, always willing to help you when they need it, because I was a people pleaser. The life of the party, I guess that's way too many words, but anyway. Friendly, fun, generous, I don't know really anymore. And then my true self, my friends would tell you, they would say intense, loving, firm, fair, and I don't know, you're my friend. What's a word you would describe me?
I would say great leader.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad, because heaven knows I've had enough screw-ups that I would not say that. But, yeah, like, I certainly have learned to live into more, like, difficult things, and not, like, you can't make everybody happy. And I talked about that in one of our sermons in the series. Like, I watched who I consider to be a great leader try to keep everybody happy, and it ultimately imploded because people figure out at some point that you say this to them and this to them. So I try to always be what you see is what you get. And if you don't like what you get, then okay. Like, I have to learn that it's okay for people to walk away. So.
I think, too, with maturing, like, I love how you said intense, because old me or false me would think intense was a negative word.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just too much.
I'm not sure it's
intense.
a good one.
Well, I think, well, yeah. But I think as I'm maturing, intense doesn't have to be
Right,
a bad word.
right.
So,
And, you know, I think when people say that about me, they don't mean it bad. They just mean, you know, she's really passionate
Right.
about what she does. And so sometimes it's not a lot of fluff. It's just we gotta do this. So, all right.
big emotions.
Yeah, I do have big
But
emotions.
we're-
Yeah,
we're the
and I
same
think
with
that's why
that.
we understand. We're the same on the Enneagram. Yeah. So, okay. Describe this is your last question, right?
Yeah.
Describe a moment in your life when you shined. As her boss, I'm really interested to hear how she answers this in her false self and true self.
Okay, yeah, so my false self would definitely take something that on the surface would be considered a shine, like maybe when I graduated college, walked across the stage or something. But now I would say I'm really learning to love not the negative things about myself, but I would consider a shining moment a moment when I grew in
cool.
some way, shape, or form. So
Wow.
I've had a lot here at West. I wish
We're
I
all
could.
about transformation.
Yeah, I wish I could think of one right now off the top of my head, but I've cried at many staff meetings. There's a lot of times when I felt like I could have done better. I always try to outdo myself instead of being like content with where I'm at. And obviously we always want to grow and be better, but you don't have to always chase the next best thing.
There's something between being driven and chasing.
Yeah.
So,
and I was always chasing. So I think I've had a lot of moments here, though, where I've grown in ways that I didn't expect to grow. And to me, those would be shining moments now instead of like spotlight.
Wow,
moments.
that's really deep. I'm grateful for that. And one of the things that I see in Lexi when she shines is when she is authentic to the mission and the vision. And she does not compromise that to try to appease the religious community. And so one of the things that we're really passionate about, and one of our biggest challenges is we got a grant to hire Lexi and do Growth Co. That grant is decreasing in value. So at some point, we've got to figure out how this becomes self-sustaining. And so it's why we started Soul Creations. It's why we started the nonprofit Level Up Together. And we have some ideas that we hope are going to lead into that. However, tithing is something that, is a sore spot really for anybody. And I don't think you want me beating you over the heads with, are you giving 10% of your income? Like whatever comes into your checking account every month, do you give 10% to West? Or I would prefer West, of course, but other nonprofits in the community. Like, do you give 10% of all that you receive? Do you give it away? Because that's biblical. And, if Lexi were to start talking about that to the 20-year-olds, they would shut the door on Growth Co. immediately. And so one of the things that we've learned to talk about as a church and a faith community is sacrificial giving. That, we believe that love is sacrificial. The way that Jesus loved is sacrificial. So the way that we love needs to be sacrificial, and that can be in a lot of different ways. At some point, there needs to be some skin in the game financially, but we can also love sacrificially with our time. And we can love sacrificially with being ambassadors for West and trying to spread the good news like, hey, look, there's this cool church that really accepts you as you are and helps you grow in your journey. And so Lexi stands true to the mission and vision of who Growth Co is, and does not allow religious rules to impede the mission and the vision. And that's a tough decision because you want to keep everybody happy. But she stays true to who you are.
Well, thanks for that. Okay, last one. Are you a trusting person?
Well, clearly, yeah. Got me in trouble after a failed marriage. Because I trusted too much. And I'm just answering this as my true self to go for Tom. That's how I know, actually, if I'm living between my false self and my true self, is when I start not trusting. That's when bad stuff starts happening. I'm like, I know he's still not at the dentist. That was one of the first arguments Tom and I had, because I asked him to stop by because I had some things I wanted to give him, and the office, and I was going to call him and ask him, but I was waiting on him to leave the dentist. And so when we finally talked, I'm like, I know you're still not at the dentist. But it did not come across as, hey, can you stop by the office? It came across as, I know you're not still at the dentist. And that's my false self. That's my afraid self. And so honestly, I have been able with therapy, a lot of therapy, to get to the point of, you know what? I've got my flaws and I'm not perfect, but whoever chooses to love me, they get a blessing. And that's hard for me to say, because then all those negative voices, tell me all the things I'm not. But trusting is hard for me. And not just in my romantic relationships, in work relationships, in the PAC team, I have to constantly tell myself they're not trying to stage a coup and, get me gone. Crazy crap that goes through my head. So I want to be trusting. When I am trusting, I'm my true self. When I'm not trusting, I'm my false self. And so that's it. So we're going to end our little segment. You're going to watch the bumper video, and then I'm going to read a passage of scripture for you that I think is going to bring it all together. It's a beautiful chapter in the Gospel of John. And so I want you to just sort of settle into where you are and be ready to meditate on an image and the scripture that I'm going to read, because as we prepare to go into Lent and the weeks leading up to the ultimate vision of what love really is, I just want our minds and our heads to be in the right spaces and places. So, Lexi, thank you. You're amazing.
Thanks. It was fun.
It was fun. And so watch this video, and we're going to transition into our meditation moment.
From Hollywood, the dating capital of the world, in color, it's The Dating Game.
So if you have ever been to a celebration of life, a funeral, where they are, professing followers of Jesus, you have most likely heard words from the chapter of John, or the book of John, chapter 13. And that's when Jesus washes the disciples' feet, and he talks about the new commandment. And it's a beautiful chapter. However, just like, in everything in life, when you got this, there's something that comes before it. John chapter 12 is a beautiful, beautiful chapter. And it's words maybe you've not even heard of Scripture. And so I just want you to settle into your space right now, wherever you're worshiping, whether you're driving, just sort of, take some deep breaths and find a place of peace. And I want you to hear these words from John chapter 12. There were some Greeks in the town who had come up to worship at the feast. They approached Philip, who was from Bethesda in Galilee. "Sir, we want to see Jesus. Can you help us?" Philip went and told Andrew, and Andrew and Philip together told Jesus. Jesus answered, "Time's up. I don't have time right now. The time has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. I need you to listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat. But if it is buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. In the same way, anyone that holds on to life, just as it is, destroys that life." Let me read that one more time. Anyone that holds on to life just as it is, destroys that life. But if you let it go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. If any of you wants to serve me, then follow me. Then you'll be where I am, ready to serve at a moment's notice. The Father will honor and reward anyone who serves me. Right now, I am storm-tossed, and what am I going to say? "Father, get me out of this"? No. This is why I came in the first place. So I'm just going to say, "God, Father, put your glory on display." It was in that moment that they heard a voice. "I have glorified it, and I'll glorify it again." Remember, Jesus was praying in this time, so he heard an answer to his prayer. I have already glorified it, and I'll glorify it again. And the people that were around listening, they said, "Thunder. That sounded like thunder." And others said, "An angel spoke to him." 6 days before the Passover, Jesus went where Lazarus, so recently had been raised from the dead, was living. Lazarus and his sisters invited Jesus to dinner at their home, and Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those sitting at the table with him. Mary came in with a jar of very expensive aromatic oils, anointed and massaged Jesus' feet, and then wiped him with her hair. The fragrance of the oils filled the house. Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, even then getting ready to betray him, said, "Why wasn't this oil sold and the money given to the poor? It would have easily brought 300 silver pieces." He said this not because he cared 2 cents about the poor, but because he was a thief. He was in charge of their common funds, but he also embezzled them. Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She's anticipating and honoring the day of my burial. You will always have the poor with you. You will not always have me." Word got out among the Jews that he was back in town, the people who came to take a look not only at Jesus, but also at Lazarus, who had been raised from the dead. So the high priest plotted to kill Lazarus because so many of the Jews were going over and then deciding to follow Jesus on account of what had happened. The next day, a huge crowd that had arrived for the feast heard that Jesus was coming into the city of Jerusalem. So they broke off palm branches and went out to meet him. And they cheered, "Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in God's name. He is the King of Israel." Jesus got a young donkey and rode it just as the scripture said. The disciples did not notice the fulfillment of so many Hebrew scriptures at the time. But after Jesus was glorified, meaning dead and resurrected, they remembered what was written about him and matched what was done to him. The crowd that had been with him when he called Lazarus from the tomb, raising him from the dead, was there giving eyewitness accounts. It was because they had spread the word of this latest God sign that the crowd had swelled to a welcoming parade. The Pharisees took one look, threw up their hands, said, "This is out of control. The world is in a stampede after them." Jesus said, "Look, For a brief time, the light is still among you. Walk by the light, and walk by the light that you have, so darkness does not betray you or destroy you. If you walk in darkness, you don't know where you're going. As you have the light, believe in the light. Then the light will be within you, shining through your lives, and you will be children of light. Look, the whole point of this thing called religion is so that we become who we truly are in the eyes of God. And the more that we grow and the more that we are transformed, the more godlike we become. And the more godlike we become, the more broad that we see, the less judgmental that we are, the more we learn to live as a people of place and peace. As we get ready to enter into the season of Lent, may we be a people of growth and transformation. May we become people that would want to date ourselves because we change. And we move away from that false self, the things that die when we die. And may we become who we truly are in the creation and the eternal space of God. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, you have loved us from the moment of conception, and you have led us on our journey. Thank you for being with us and always present in our times of growth, in our times of being our false selves, and then, nudging us forward to be who we truly and eternally are as we return to that first place where we were at one with you. God, thank you for being ever present in that journey, for giving us grace and forgiveness. God, continue to move in us so that the light that shines in us can be a light that shines in the world. We give you thanks for being such an amazing and gracious God. Amen. I hope you have a great week. We will send out a text tomorrow morning that lets you know what we're going to do for Ash Wednesday. Put your comments in the chat room, and we're grateful that you're here. Thanks.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. My feet doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I